Hey YouTube. I never really do these YouTube things because unless you're Jacksepticeye or John Tron or Video Game Donkey or whatever, these never get looked at. But I cannot be silent. I really can't. Days like these, we have to fight the power, and today I fought the power. This is the truth for the youth. Outside of a Christian thrift store that I frequent from time to time, they were giving out these. They were free. Take one. Well, they said you could take as many as you wanted. So I took their entire supply. Wasn't stealing, because they said I could take as many as I wanted. I asked if I could take the whole box. They said they didn't care, they just wanted to get rid of them. I am absolutely disgusted with this, because it shows just how and why we've had things like the rise of Trump. Why we have a president right now who accuses Jewish schools of faking their own bomb threats, who puts undocumented immigrants into detention centers with worse living conditions than a maximum security federal prison. I agree that America is for American citizens, but at some point you just gotta go, that person may be undocumented. Do they deserve to be treated like this? And unfortunately, link in the description, they are literally treating the undocumented like the Jews during the Holocaust. It's disgusting. And when I saw that this was being given out, it looks harmless. The truth for the youth, and on the back, it promises to teach you about student legal rights on public school campuses. The right to meet with other religious students and to form Bible clubs. The right to express your religious belief through signs, symbols, and clothing. The right to talk about your religious beliefs and share your faith with other students on campus. And this fourth one I find interesting because it's written in bold, which none of the others are. And it says the right to distribute religious literatures, Bibles on campus, religious literature, including Bibles, on campus during non-instructional time. The right to distribute religious literature, Bibles, on campus during non-instructional time. That one's written in bold, which none of the others are. There's also the right to pray on campus alone, the right to carry or study your Bible or other religious literature on campus, the right to do research papers, speeches, creative projects, or talent programs on religious themes, the right to be exempt from activities that contradict your religious beliefs, the right to be exempt from activities that contradict your religious beliefs, the right to celebrate or study religious holidays on campus, the right to study religious themes, religious literature, and religious history. If you have any questions or need legal assistance regarding these rights, contact the ministry below or telephone number below. Additional copies may be obtained through Bible Flyers International, P.O. Box 372, West Monroe, LA 71294, or call 800-RF Fires, 800-733-4737. And they've got a little website, truthforyouth.com. It's a little sunny in here. You would be wondering, what's the big deal? Religious people have the same rights that I do to form a gay-straight alliance on a college campus. Well, this is true, and I'm not arguing that. But this book is lies. They say that what they want is just their spot at the table, just their piece, and that they should not be discriminated against. I'm fine with that. If you want to make a Bible study at your local school, at your local college or high school or middle school, whatever, go for it. I don't care, as long as it's not mandatory or required for a grade or anything like that. I don't care. But the reason I took the whole box to prevent these from being distributed And just for the authorities, I asked the thrift store giving these away if I could take the whole box. They said they did not care if I took the whole box, they just wanted to be rid of them because they had been sitting there for a while. I did not steal these. I took a look inside the book, and what I found was shocking. First, well, there's a table of contents, obviously. Um, when you get to the table of contents, that's when things really get shady. The truth about safe sex, passes and plays, pornography, parental controls, homosexuality, born that way, abortion, the castaways, evolution, somebody's making a monkey out of you, secular rock music, sorcery and witchcraft. Like there's some things in here that aren't bad, but like admittedly there is a passage on how to avoid drugs and drunkenness and peer pressure, legitimate things about the Bible, Ten Commandments, and a section on how God says that school violence is not the way. That's fine, but most of this is dedicated towards abortion, homosexuality, and evolution. Those are also secular rock music and witchcraft. Oh yeah, we are in for some shit. Like right here, most of this stuff, by the way, is not written in detail. It's like, because here's the thing. What do they have to say on the subject? Maybe they've got some good points. They're written in comic book format. Every passage for every topic comic book format. Now, admittedly, in the back, they do have a copy of the Bible with annotated sections speaking about how these are relevant. But for the topics described in the table of contents, it's all in comic book format. These aren't giving the facts. This is just a little cartoon meant to brainwash kids. If you were giving the facts, quoting statistics, maybe I'd let it slide. But these are comic books. Harry Poletterly and the Sinister Sorcery Satire. There's a lot of problematic stuff, and maybe I'll go into some of the sections in more detail, but I'm gonna show you the passage on homosexuality, because that I read in full detail, because I find what people have to say about the LGBT community, especially when they're, you know, Christian, to be quite interesting. I've got no problem with Christianity, but why comic books? Why not cited sources? Because children won't read cited sources. They'll just read comic books and remember all the colorful pages. It's meant to brainwash children, not give them the facts. I'm going to show you some highlights from the comic Born That Way, The Truth About Homosexuality. it starts with it starts with the gay straight alliance, who here are just called born that way because gay straight alliance would imply facts. And we've got one side here being reasonable and saying, we've got one side over here being reasonable and saying that it is Nazi-like and hateful to be anti-gay. And it's not like these are people who are, and it's not like these are people who are saying, well, as long as they act straight or keep it to themselves. These are people holding up signs saying, die queers and death to fags. But you might, now, at first, I was giving it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's saying it's wrong to be hateful or hurtful towards someone who's different, because after all, Christ said to love thy neighbor. Except one problem. The very next page, we have our protagonists. And it says, it actually says that the people protesting against those who are homophobic are being just as evil as those who are straight up hating people for being homophobic. So, according to this right here, the act of homophobia is just as wrong as standing up for gay rights. Alright. Already this lost me. But it gets worse. One of the characters admits to being gay, causing his older brother, this guy right here, to freak out and being all like, no brother of mine's a queer. Which one of the leaders of the Born That Way group immediately starts hugging the person for coming out as gay, and suddenly they like this person for other reasons than the fact that they're gay, because that's as far as homosexuals care about each other, the fact that they're gay or not, which is why we all just loved Milo Yiannopoulos, right? And so his older brother keeps calling him a homosexual, and then the guy who comes out as gay, now it says, and the guy who comes out as gay is the victim. This is where it starts getting incredibly, incredibly problematic. Because right now you're thinking, okay, maybe it's trying to take a neutral stance. It's not. It's not trying to take a neutral stance. It's trying to make you think that. But the further you read into here, the more you realize it's not trying to take a neutral stance. What it's instead trying to do, well, look on this page right here. Okay, time out all of you. Santo, it's not for you to judge anybody, including homosexuals. The Bible does all the judging, but no, Louisa, the person with the Born That Way group hugging the person for being gay. But no, Louisa, they are not born that way. So homosexuality does not qualify as a civil rights discrimination issue. And Sebastian, you need to know that the Lord died for all sinners, including homosexuals. Being gay is a sin. Now, I find that a little hypocritical, considering you're saying that gays don't deserve any legal protections because you can't be born gay. Well, first off, even if that were true, the back of the book in itself is trying to make the argument that Christians should have legal protections, but you're not born a Christian. So the book just burnt a hole into its own argument with its own dumbass comic book. And no, they're not citing any sources. The only thing being cited here are direct passages from the Bible, most of which are cherry-picked. There's nothing in here about legal precedent. Like, it says homosexuality does not qualify as a civil rights discrimination issue because they're not born that way, but there's no source here. There's no listing of a law that says that. And then right below it can, and then right over here, the girl with the born that way says, and leak, stop calling them homosexuals. The proper term is now gay. First off, homosexual is not considered a slur of any kind. Second off, sorry, Louisiana, but gay is only a political correct term. Code word for condoning homosexuality, just as pro-choice is for abortion supporters. I won't use those deceptive terms, no matter how often the liberal media tries to reinforce them. So right there, we have an admission of bias. Gay is a code word? Since when? Look, hating homosexuals is wrong, but so is embracing homosexuality as normal behavior. Many people are deceived into thinking that it displays a warm love for our fellow man. Instead, it's a symbol of our chilly lack of love for God. Homosexuality by itself is atheism, apparently. Because you can't be Christian and gay. That's just impossible. Oh, but it gets worse. The Born That Way crowd starts throwing tear gas and rocks towards our protagonist because they're wild and crazy. Eventually, the homophobe is wounded, and they rush him to the hospital, and we'll rush him to an ambulance, and then it gets worse. They start debating over whether or not they'll go to hell if I was gay. But my friend Richard and Louisa, all the media say I was gay and I can't change. How could a loving God condemn me to hell if I was born that way? The ambulance worker then immediately starts piping in, kid, God loves the homosexual, but he hates the sin of homosexuality, and Born That Way is a bunch of hooey. When I was a homosexual 30 years ago, nobody ever said that. Nobody. Not once. Never. They hadn't thought of it yet. It wasn't part of their PR arsenal. Whether or not you are homosexual or you've been suckered into a few homosexual acts by some predator, either way, Jesus can save you and change you, and can wash you clean and renew your mind, just like he did for me. Advocation for ex-gay therapy. The comic ends right there. That's only one section. I'm still reading through the rest of this, and the actual part of this that is detailed by the table of contents is right here. That was a very abridged skimming through of it, but there's, like I said, for a lot of these claims, such as how homosexuality is not a civil rights issue, there's no source for that. First off, as for whether or not homosexuality is a civil rights issue, it depends on the state. Technically, the Civil Rights Act does not promise protections based on sexual preference or anything like that. It offers protection for gender identity and gender expression, but not sexual preference. And depending on the state, you may or may not have a state law saying that homosexuals are protected or a local ordinance. However, there's nothing about that. There's no source cited outside of the Bible. Specifically, Luke 6:37, and 1 Peter 3:18. There's also no data in here about ex-gay therapy, the risks involved in it, where it's legal, why it's not legal everywhere, or anything about the many people who commit suicide because they went through ex-gay therapy. Instead, it just screams, "It's a liberal agenda! Agree with me because I can quote the Bible!" That's all it says. And it's being given to young children who are not old or mature enough to know for themselves. I consider myself a big friggin' hero for taking this smut where it won't be used to brainwash children. Like I said, every single section that it talks about is done in comic book format. There are some briefs here. There's a guideline for starting a Bible club in school, and it's just a list. And this gets really cute. Right here, summary of equal access. Equal access means equal treatment. Religious clubs must be treated equally and receive identical benefits afforded to the secular clubs. Religious clubs may meet during class time if secular clubs meet during class time. Must be student initiated and led, may have a teacher sponsor, may bring in outside speakers, may receive school funding if school funding is provided for other non-curriculars, may advertise and promote religious reading if other secular clubs are allowed to promote and advertise their meetings, may not be denied unless access unless specific evidence of the club material and substantially interferes with the normal operation of school. While that's true, again, there's no citing here for where it's getting these rules from. And again, it keeps talking about about how Christians have equal rights. Except it's being hypocritical. It wants to have its cake and eat it too, because during the homosexuality portion, it says that people are not born gay, that it's somehow a choice, and therefore there are no civil rights protections. However, right here, it demands civil rights protections for Christians. But the logic used in the other passage was that you can't be born gay, thus it's not a civil rights issue. Therefore, how can it be a civil rights issue because you can choose to be Christian? Like, I'm not saying Christians shouldn't have equal rights. They should. Everyone should have equal rights. The only thing I have a problem with is the blatant hypocrisy. And yeah, I realize this is a pretty long video, but then it does that for like one page. Then it goes back to comics. This is the section on school violence and school shootings. There are no sources cited. There are no sources cited at all of data on anything about school shootings or mentions of actual school shootings, laws on the books about gun control or mental health that lead someone to do shooting. It just automatically says that it would stop because Bible. That's an incredibly naive way to go about it. Then you can get more books from Truth for the Youth because of a coupon, and there's also a brief section on the Ten Commandments. The rest of it is just the Bible quoted verbatim with highlighted passages clarifying what they mean. I just don't understand how or why something like this would be given to a child. It's brainwashing at best. Like I said, if they had some sources, I'd be able to cut it some slack. But this is just propaganda with bright, colorful pictures to get the kids. I feel like I should be burning these books. but I won't, because I do not burn literature. What's being done to our youth is terrible. They're being brainwashed, and as long as we have these books, we have proof of what they tried to do. Said, I'm not Christian. I have close friends who are Christians. I don't want Christians to lose their rights, but I still demand that everyone, everywhere, regardless of faith, have an adult conversation with people about their viewpoints. And if you really want to try and get me to change my life, maybe colorful little comic books aren't better than cited sources, studies, actual up-to-date legal information. Just, I, I'm at a loss. I'm completely and utterly at a loss.